Sorry.
And go ahead.
Oh, just said sorry for the interruption. We'll just record for folks that can't make it.
Yep. Anywho, Joseph, I highly recommend it because he provides a really low tech, easy, low stress way to support people. You know, land raised gardening is a way of developing selections that work for your environment. So I was thinking of Steve talking about wanting to improve germination in his seed supply, and you can select for that in plants. And to me, it feels like there's the way we, you know, there's a very scientific and sort of strict and rigorous way of doing seed selection that, you know, frankly, is a really high barrier for a lot of us. But you can do it in a much more relaxed way that functionally gives you the products that you're looking for without worrying so much about being rigorous in the details of the mechanism. And so it's a really phenomenal way to support all of us in our efforts to try to improve the biodiversity of our seed supply and our crops in these times of extreme weather, you know, unpredictable weather. So I heard people talk about, you know, drought and floods, and you know, right here we haven't had many days over 60 in this entire month of June here on the west side. So it's just, so whatever. That's the resource I invite people to explore. I wandered around my shop here because I used to have a dozen books, but I seem to have given them all away. So like, check it out yourself. I'm going to do, I think, is it worth doing this? I have a little presentation, and I'm not sure it's helpful with 20 minutes left, but maybe I'll just talk my way through here.
I'll do a bio of you after you leave.
Oh yeah,
Robin.
Great. Sure, perfect. So I'm not going to give you my presentation. I'm just going to talk my way through some thoughts here. And what I want to say is the following. So just very briefly, I got into this, you know, you'll get my bio later, but in an effort to support a community in developing a practice of reestablishing a practice of selecting, saving, and sharing seeds, which came out of an interest and desire of mine to support increasing the biodiversity of our agricultural seed crops. I ended up discovering that really what I needed to do is educate people on how to save seeds. And really before that, I had to teach most people how to grow food. And my takeaway from literally 10 years is the following, and this is just a fact. This is where we are. If you're under the age of 75, which is 3 generations, generation is 25 years, chances are that by and large, when you were growing up, you were not taught by an elder in your community how to save seed. And if you're under the age of 50, that's 2 generations, the chances are when you were growing up, you were not taught by an elder in your community how to grow food. And as we all know, the things you learn as a kid, they become part of your DNA, and they become part of your knowledge of what to do in the world. And if you don't have that, it is an incredibly high barrier without a strong interest to overcome in terms of growing food, let alone saving seed. We have a fear of that which we don't know. And for a lot of people, believe it or not, this is not the world that most of you live in, but outside of that world, there's a fear of I'm going to fail if I don't grow my food well, and you know, I'm possibly going to kill myself or something like that. It's literally that on that level, if you don't have any felt sense knowledge of how to grow. So that's the truth of most of the population in the Western world. It's just where we are. And so, you know, it's a huge deal to overcome. the truth of the matter is that all of the agricultural crops that we rely on today, we as humans all by ourselves developed every single one of these varieties and species. You know, wild carrots, wild wheat, wild corn, in its original form looks nothing like the plants that we enjoy today. So we developed all the biodiversity that we've enjoyed, and in the last 100 years, we've destroyed up to over 90% of that biodiversity. But honestly, the same biodiversity can be recreated. It's just a question of saving, selecting, and sharing seeds. That's it. It's not, that's what our ancestors taught us for 10,000 years, and we just need to get back into it. We've broken the cycle, as many of you know. It's just a question of how do we rebuild it? And there are two parts to that. It takes people like yourselves who are interested in it, having the time and capacity to do some seed saving, growing some plants for seed. And then it also takes the rest of the community to understand that this is of value. And that's a critical piece. What I would say is that it's a very small fraction, just as it's a small fraction of a community's population that are the food growers for that community, it's an even smaller fraction that are the seed savers. And you can't demand that people take an interest in seed saving. However, the process of harvesting seed and cleaning seed and sharing seed, that is something that actually many people in the community enjoy. And so the other thing I've learned from my 10 years is that bringing community together to support the cleaning of seeds, the harvesting of plants for seed saving, the packaging of seeds, all of that work, it's a lot of hands-on work. That actually, it's as if it awakens a knowledge inside of people. And I don't know, my story that I just live with right now is that it's that when people put their hand on seeds and do the tactile work of cleaning seeds and do it in community, I've seen it, that it's like it awakens a knowledge that's in our DNA. You know, we've saved our own seeds, we've grown our own foods for literally over 10,000 years. And so we can certainly do that. And so that knowledge is in us. We just, as I said, have kind of broken that direct lineage of it for 3 generations. And the process of bringing people in contact with the seeds in the cleaning process, I think it helps awaken something. And so where I actually spend a lot of my time is creating opportunities for people to come together and participate in that one thing, without attachment to whether they ever plant a seed or grow a plant or anything, because it enlivens a knowledge that then can be used to help build engagement, because it's literally going to take all of us to rebuild our biodiversity, our seed biodiversity. You know, there's so many things that are at risk right now that all of you guys working on the Soil Task Force know, you know, with respect to the changing climate and the impact and how we've been treating our soils up until recently. And, you know, we're still arguing about energy, and, you know, the next thing on the line is water and soil. Nobody is thinking about seeds, but the bottom line is that pretty much everything we eat grew directly or indirectly from a seed. And we have, just as we have damaged our soils, as I mentioned, we have lost over 90% of the biodiversity of our agricultural seed crops, and over 60% of our commercial seeds supply is proprietary now and owned by 3 global companies. So for the health of our children, our grandchildren, our communities, and our regions is completely dependent on our ability to take care of ourselves, and that includes taking care of our seeds. We're at about 10 of, so I think I'm just going to stop there, and maybe we can do the rest of it with conversation.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, and so questions, comments that people might have. As you can tell, Robin has got a lot of information that we're not going to be able to pull out of her, even as she is
Oh,
so willing to give it.
I'm going to pop in and just say, I have a normal presentation that I do. It takes about 45 minutes, but I've exported it as a PDF and I'll send it to Gusty and you guys can look through it. And I'm happy to answer any questions, now or later. Yeah, Steve.
Robin, do you have any experience with inoculating seeds, like with biology to kind of improve germination?
Yeah, I do. I do it with a worm compost that I make. There are lots of different ways to do it. There's the whole route of quorum sensing, but yes, I think it helps a lot. There's definitely biology in and on seeds naturally, and if you can engage it with some kind of an inoculant, you're just supporting the whole vitality of the microbial life that's really fundamentally doing the farming or the gardening, growing for you.
Great.
Are you inoculating these seeds? You said a worm tea, but like you get the seeds wet, you soak them and then dry them, and then maybe you can use a spreader or something.
Well, I do the inoculation right before I plant. So depending on the seed, like if it's a hard skinned seed like corn or beans, like fava beans or dry beans of some kind, I'll soak them in a liquid tea of some kind. Oh, sometimes I'll do it overnight just because that softens up the skin, and then I plant that. But I know a lot of large scale farmers, they drop a liquid inoculant in their spreader when they drop their seed. So that gets done at the same time, but definitely engaging the seed with the biology in the soil is always helpful for germination, I think.
I was just trying to like broadcast them. And so I tried to inoculate it like that. And then then you can't broadcast them anymore.
Oh, because they're wet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking if there's a way to.
Yeah, so the options are to let it dry or to, sometimes I'll just mix my seed with dry worm compost, and
Yeah.
it's not a precise science, certainly as I practice it. Yeah.
Thanks. More?
I have more questions, I guess. Do you have, what kind of seeds do you concentrate on? Or do you do, reclamation seed and native seeds? Or is it mostly like old crops genetics that you're trying to save?
So let's see, I work primarily at the community level myself. So I work a lot with vegetable, flower, and herb seeds. But they're all open pollinated seeds. A lot of them are traditionally heirloom seeds. And what I really appreciate about the landrace gardening book that I just mentioned by Joseph Lofthouse is he really, there's this line, it's just interesting the way humans think, but we tend to think things are good or bad. And so we tend to think that, heirlooms are good, and we try to maintain the purity of that variety. But really, the most important thing is supporting the plants that do well on your land, adapting to your environment, and then selecting for those because it's a living relationship between the genetics in the seed and the genetics in the microbial world in the soil. Like, that's the relationship. And over time, the black crim tomato or the variety of wheat that you guys grow, I may lose the true definition of, I'm just going to talk about a tomato, black crim, and it may no longer be the black crim I started with, but it's a tomato that does really well in my environment. And for the longevity of and sustainability of my food supply, that's ultimately more important than, being able to claim that I still have the original black crim tomato that I had. And I'm pretty sure that's the way our ancestors worked. They were not really, it's all about identifying something that is nutritious, it's nutrient dense, it stores well, it manages pests well, it manages frosts and climate extremes well. That's what I'm saving for, and that's what I'm passing on to the next generation, because this is what's important. Anyways, I kind of wandered away here.
Yeah.
And
that's
Joseph
helpful.
talks about, being less attached to an heirloom, but maybe call it heritage or something. It's you claiming a direct living relationship with the plants that do well where they live.
Great.
That builds biodiversity as well. You're
Yes,
helping.
1000%. Yes. That is how, that's how it came about to begin with.